we're going to take a look at the Hypershade now. It's a more advanced way of working with your shaders inside of Maya. And so we are going to just take a look at this file we were working on with a transparent texture image-based texture mapped kind of shader that we were working with. So we've got this guy set up here from an earlier lesson. Their Hypershade, you can access it via this little button here at the top. It's like a blue circle with a white circle in the center. And as we click on this, we get a nice little preview that's going on. If I click on it, um, you might not see everything that's in here right now. I'm going to go ahead and just clear the graph because you'll likely just see a blank space here where it says press tab to create a node. You can create shaders from scratch. I tend to like to make my hypershader just a little bit bigger, so I'm going to kind of stretch this out. But say I want to see that shader that we're working with. Over here on the right, we're getting a nice preview. I can click through these and see different textures that I have, all the textures in my scene right now. And then I can also come over here in the material viewer up here. I don't have to look at it as a ball. I can look at it as cloth. I can look at it as a teapot, ocean object, which is kind of interesting. Actually, a plane works really well in this particular case because that's what we had it actually mapped to create that leaf texture. So whatever fits your object, I'm going to leave it on that right now. And we can choose, maybe we want it to look like in the Arnold render, what does it actually look like versus the hardware render. That's fine. I'm going to leave it on hardware for right now. But if I want to see how this is actually set up as a nodal system, I need to add it. So I need to select up here in the materials, and then I hit this little button here, the add selected node to graph. Okay. Now I only get the base AI standard surface shader. If I want to see all the little layers that are making up this particular shader, there's to the left of that I have show just input connections, show output connections, or show both. I'm going to do both. And here's how you can see this is a great visual representation of what's actually going on. So this is the part that's actually going out and being mapped to my object. This is the AI standard shader, and these are the various elements that are going into it, right? So I have like a bump map image that's going into the normal camera. I have an alpha channel that's going into the opacity section. I have the JPEG, the original image with UV coordinates, and the original file that leads into that. You can go all the way back, see the leaf bump and displacement that goes into the bump channel, the place texture, which is kind of some of that UV mapping, rudimentary UV mapping. So one goes into the next, and you can see how these little guys work with inputs and outputs. It's really great. It's a beautiful system. You can try to draw in different connections. That one wasn't going to work right, but I can try to reconnect and play around with different elements. So I'm going to reconnect that one. So you can play around with. We're not going to get into custom building, but I want you to understand as I click on these, you see you have the property editor for each of them that shows up in the right, which is really handy. So if you ever have a hard time just kind of navigating with these little white input output buttons in the attributes window, come into the Hypershader because you can access things directly as long as you reveal everything. Like I said, show all the input and output connections. You also have a list of all of your options, different shaders that you can add to things, and you can try to draw in different connections, right? So you can have a lot of fun with this, and you can try different things out. So I could say, maybe I want to grab a noise shader. As soon as I click on that, I get the object up here and how that's connected, and I could try doing a noise into one of these. I can draw it and make a connection to the noise, and I could play around with the noise channel. If I don't like that, I can always just take that and break the connection. I just right-clicked on it to do that, and you can always select these guys and delete them as well. So you don't have to keep anything in this kind of nodal-based editor that you don't want. But it's a more advanced way of working with your shaders, a really handy way to do it. You can also assign shaders to different objects in your scene, which is really convenient. So up here at Window, you can actually bring in a viewport. Now it came up as a pop-up, but I could actually try to drag this in here. There we go. And then I can have a little viewport up here and drag this down, and I could actually see my objects in the scene. So maybe if I brought in, I'll just bring in a cube. I can actually drag a shader. If you do middle mouse button, you can drag it onto an object, which is really cool. Now this shader, I think I need to turn on some smooth shade. There we go. But I could say take that leaf and drag it on, and it applies it to it as well. So just kind of an easy way, and you can actually move things around in here. It's just another viewport. So a lot of times I'll kind of customize my Hypershader a bit. Now on some systems that don't have powerful GPUs or CPUs, the Hypershader is known to cause some crashes. So I don't recommend it for every laptop out there. Definitely need to meet those Maya system requirements to be able to use the Hypershader effectively. But it sure is a lot easier to just kind of like see what all shaders you've got. You can look at texture files, you can look at all sorts of different stuff that's up here, lights and cameras. There's some really nice elements in here to play around with. So check out the Hypershader. That's just a quick intro. We'll be looking at it in more detail in the future, but a great system built into Maya.